Hi students, good morning, have a nice day. Today we are going to see a beautiful story. The name of the story is The Parrot Who Wouldn't Talk, written by Ruskin Bond. Before we go to the class, you have a nice video. In that video, you are going to see the different types of parrots and how they are speaking. Then we can go to the class.
What do you want? What do you want? You're a puppy. My best friend.
குட்டி மீனாட்சி ஒடியா 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 மீனாட்சி மீனாட்சி
வாடா மீனாட்சி
ஒடியா 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 ஒடியா
வாடா மீனாட்சி
வாடா மீனாட்சி வாடா மீனாட்சி மீனாட்சி வாடா மீனாட்சி வாடா மீனாட்சி வாடா.
Students, in this story, important characters are the narrator Ruskin Bond and the parrot, next, and Ruby. These are important characters in the story. Now, we will read about author Ruskin Bond. Then we can go to the class. Students, look at the picture. He is Ruskin Bond. He was born 1934. He is a well-known Indian author of children's books. He was born in 1934 in Kasali. He has spent most of his life in the lap of the Himalayas. He wrote his first novel, The Room on the Roof, when he was 17. He has written 30 novels for children and more than 100 short stories. He has been writing for more than 50 years now. He lives with his adopted family near Mussoorie, Uttarakhand. He only has written the story The Parrot Who Would Not Talk. Let's see the story. Students, let's read this story. The name of the story is The Parrot Who Would Not Talk. It was written by Ruskin Bond. Take page number 84 in your book, in your textbook, page number 84. Let's read about a parrot that refused to speak. Find out the twist in the tale. Story starts like this. You are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance. With these words, Aunt Ruby would taunt the unfortunate parakeet who glared morosely at everyone from his ornamental cage at one end of the long veranda of Granny's bungalow in North India. Students, Aunt Ruby always make fun of parakeets, so he looked morosely at everyone from his ornamental cage. Ornamental cage means attractive. The cage was very attractive. The Aunt Ruby would taunt always. That means Aunt Ruby make fun of parakeet. So he glared morosely at everyone from his ornamental cage. At the one end of the long veranda of Granny's bungalow in North India. That ornamental cage, where is it? It is at one end of long veranda of Granny's bungalow in North India. Students, now let's see the history of parrot which was trained by Indian or European. In those distant days, almost everyone, Indian or European, kept a pet parrot or parakeet or lovebird as some of the smaller ones were called. Sometimes these birds became great talkers or rather mimics and would learn to recite entire mantras, religious chants, or admonitions to the children of the house, such as Badho Beta Badho, that means study, child study, or for the benefit of boys like me, don't be greedy, don't be greedy. Students, there was a history. How the parrot was trained by people, there was a history. Let me tell you. So, in those distant days, almost everyone, Indian or European, kept a pet parrot or parakeet. Parakeet also is a kind of parrot only or lovebird, as some of the smaller ones were called. Sometimes these birds became great talkers. Yes, sometimes these pet these pets became great talkers or rather mimics. Mimics means to copy someone's behavior voice so that pets know pet mimics others would learn to recite entire mantras, religious chants, or admonitions. Admonitions means warnings to the children of the house. Yes, so the pet learned admonitions to the children of the house, such as Badho Beta Badho, that means study, child study, or for the benefit of boys like me, don't be greedy, don't be greedy. So these words trained by the people to the pets like pet parrot or parakeet or lovebird. These expressions were, of course, students like here, listen. These expressions were, of course, picked by the parrot over a period of time. Not only now, then. It picked by the parrot over a period of time after many repetitions by some member of the household who had taken on the task of teaching the bird to talk. So these expressions were of course picked by the parrot over a period of time after many repetitions by some member of the household who had taken on the task of teaching the bird to talk. Here also, some member of the household had taken on the task of teaching the bird to talk, but our bird refused to talk. How? We will read the story. Story is started here itself only. Why the parrot would not talk? It is the twist in this tale. We will see now. But our parrot, page number 85. But our parrot refused to talk. He had been bought by Aunt Ruby from a bat catcher who would visited all the houses on our road selling caged birds ranging from colorful budgerigars to chirpy little munios and even common sparrows that had been tabbed with paint and passed off as some exotic species. Student, here our parrot refused to talk. The parrot had been bought by Aunt Ruby from a bat catcher. From whom did she buy? Did Auntie Ruby buy? Parrot means Auntie Ruby bought from a bat catcher. He would visited all the houses on our road. Usually, bat catcher who would visited all the houses on our road, selling caged birds ranging from colorful budgerigars. Budgerigars means Bird that people often keep as a pet in a cage is known as budgerigars. So people usually keep bird as a pet in a cage, no? It is known as budgerigars. To chirpy little munias. Munias means it's also bird only. It's a kind of bird. And even common sparrows that had been tabbed with paint. That means a bird catcher, what will they do? They dabbed even common sparrows with paint and pass it off as some exotic species. That means a bird catcher represents false as some exotic species. For example, they will give some kind of bird, but they will give it's a rare species. Like that, they will cheat people. That's the meaning. Even common sparrows that had been tabbed with paint. So the bat catcher painted the birds as some exotic species. This like a bird catcher is doing. Next, neither granny or grandfather were keen on keeping caged birds as pets. Granny and grandfather didn't have eagerness to keep caged birds as pets, but Aunt Ruby threatened to throw a tantrum if she did not get her way, and Aunt Ruby's tantrums were dreadful to behold. So Granny and grandfather didn't have eagerness to keep caged birds as pets, but Aunt Ruby threatened to throw a tantrum. Tantrum means a sudden explosion of anger if she did not get her way, and Auntie's tantrums were dreadful to behold. So, if Auntie Ruby did not get anything, her tantrums were causing or involving great sufferings to behold. Anyway, she insisted on keeping the parrot and teaching it to talk. So after both, she insisted on keeping on the parrot and teaching it to talk, but the bird took an instant dislike to my aunt and resisted all her blandishments. Blandishments means false praise. Then what happened after buying? She insisted on keeping the parrot and teaching it to talk. Aunt Ruby was teaching it to talk, but the bird took an instant dislike. But the bird didn't like Aunt Ruby. Whatever Aunt Ruby tells, the bird resisted all her blandishments. Resisted. She didn't like her teach. Resisted all her blandishments. Blandishments means false praise. Whatever false praise given by the ant, the bird resisted all her blandishments. The parrot avoided her teaching. Then what happened? Kiss, kiss, Aunt Ruby would go, putting her face close to the bars of the cage, but the parrot would back away, its beady little eyes getting even smaller with anger at the prospect of being kissed by Aunt Ruby. And on one occasion, it lunged forward without warning and knocked my aunt's spectacles off her nose. After that, Aunt Ruby gave up her endearments and became quite hostile towards the poor bird, making faces as it had, calling out, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance, and other nasty comments. Students, let me tell you the explanation of this paragraph. Aunt Ruby, putting her face close to the bars of the cage, and said, Aunt Ruby said, kiss, kiss, but the parrot would back away, and its little eyes getting even smaller with anger when Aunt Ruby asked a kiss from the parrot, its little eyes getting even smaller with anger. And another day, the parrot moving forward suddenly. Lunged means moving forward suddenly. Lunged means moving forward suddenly without warning and knocked his auntie's spectacles off her nose. After that, Aunt Ruby gave up her sweet talk to the parrot and they became unfriendly towards she became unfriendly towards the poor bird. She calling out. After that, she got angry. Whenever she saw the rabbit, she used to say, "Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." These nasty comments said by Aunt Ruby. Students, do you understand? Aunt Ruby put her face close to the bars of the cage, but the parrot would back away. And when she asked his from the parrot, its little eyes getting even smaller with anger. And another day, the parrot moving forward suddenly without warning and knocked, that means, and hit that auntie's spectacles off her nose. After that, Aunt Ruby gave up her sweet talk. That means, after that, Auntie Ruby stopped her teaching to the bird and became unfriendly towards the poor bird. Then she says, she calling out angrily, "Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." This comment said by the Aunt Ruby. Then what happened? It fell upon me then 10 years old. It fell upon me then 10 years old to feed the parrot, and it seemed quite happy to receive green chilies and ripe tomatoes from my hands. These delicacies being supplemented by slices of mango, for it was then mango season. This also gave me an opportunity to consume a couple of mangoes while feeding the parrot. Students, this one no, it burdened narrator. At the time, narrator's age was 10 years old. To feed the parrot, and it seemed quite happy to receive green chilies and ripe tomatoes from my hands. These delicacies being supplemented by slices of mango, for it was then the mango season. This also gave me an opportunity to consume a couple of mangoes while feeding the parrot. Here, when the narrator was 10 years old, he feeds the parrot. He feeds the parrot, and the parrot likes to eat green chilies and ripe tomatoes from his hands. From his hands means the narrator's hands. Then, when there is a mango season, he gave mangoes to the parrot. At the time also, he also eats a couple of mangoes. So it happened. So next, one afternoon, while everyone was indoors enjoying a siesta, I gave the parrot its lunch and then deliberately left the cage door open. Seconds later, what happened we will see. One afternoon, while everyone was indoors enjoying a siesta, that means an afternoon nap, they were sleeping in the afternoon. At the time, he gave, that means who the narrator gave the parrot its lunch and then deliberately means knowingly left the cage door open. Then what happened? So the narrator knowingly opened the cage door. Then what happened we will see. Students, Let's see what happened. The bird was winging its way to the freedom of the mango orchard. At the same time, grandfather came to the veranda and remarked, I see your aunt's parrot has escaped. But now the bird was winging, that means the bird was flying its way to the freedom of the mango orchard. Where it was flying its way to the freedom of mango orchard. Mango orchard means orchard. An orchard is an area of land on which fruit trees are grown. There it escaped. At the same time, grandfather came there and saw and also said, I saw your aunt's parrot has escaped. I see your aunt's parrot has escaped. So the grandfather told, your aunt's parrot has escaped. So what the narrator is telling, the door was quite loose. The door was quite loose. I said with a shrug, well, I don't suppose we will see it again. The narrator Ruskin Bond is telling, the door was quite loose. So when the door was loose, the bird escaped. I said with a shrug. The narrator said with a shrug. Shrug means it's a reminder. Well, he is also telling, I don't suppose we will see it again. Again, we will see, I don't know. Then what happened? Aunt Ruby was upset at first and threatened to buy another bird. We put her off by promising to buy her a bowl of goldfish, but goldfish don't talk. She protested, well, neither did you, bird, said grandfather. So we will get you a gramophone. Gramophone, you can listen to Clara Clark all day. They say she sings like a nightingale. When the parrot escaped from the cage, Aunt Ruby was upset at first and she threatened to buy another bird. She asked grandfather, I want to buy another bird. But narrator and grandfather are telling, we put her off by we are promising her to buy her a bowl of goldfish. But she is telling, the goldfish cannot talk. She said. At the time grandfather is telling, well, your bird also, that parrot also didn't speak to you, didn't talk to you, said grandfather. Okay. We will get you a gramophone. We will get a gramophone. You can listen to Clara Clark. That means it's a cartoon character. It sings like a nightingale. You can hear. Who said? The grandfather and the narrator said to the Aunt Ruby. Because the bird escaped from the cage, she was upset, so she asked her to buy another bird, but they said we will bowl a goldfish, but goldfish don't talk. Then said, your bird or parrot also didn't talk to you. So we will get you gramophone. In that you can listen to Clara Clark. That means it's a cartoon character. It sings like a nightingale. Then I thought we would never see the parrot again, but it probably missed its green chilies, because a few days later I found the bird sitting on the veranda railing, looking expectantly at me with its head cocked to one side. Unselfishly, I gave the parrot half of my mango. While the bird was enjoying the mango, Aunt Ruby emerged from her room and with a cry of surprise called out, look, it's my parrot, it has come back. He must have missed me. So here what happened? The narrator thought, that means the Ruskin Bond thought, We would never see the parrot again. But it probably missed the parrot probably missed its green chilies, ripe tomatoes, and mangoes a few days later because a few days later I found, that means the Ruskin bun found the bird sitting on the veranda railing, looking expectantly at me with its head cocked to one side. So, students, see what happened. And one day, the bird was sitting on the veranda railing, looking expectantly at me. That means at Ruskin Bond, with its head cocked to one side. Unselfishly, I gave the parrot half of my mango. So Ruskin Bond gave the parrot what? Half of my mango. What he had, he gave half of his mango. While the bird was enjoying the mango. While the bird was enjoying, that means the bird was eating the mango, at the time Aunt Ruby emerged from her room, came from her room, and with a cry of surprise. She came from her room with a cry of surprise and she called out, what? Look, it's my parrot. The Aunt Ruby tells, look, it's my parrot. It has come back. It has come back. He must have missed me. Aunt Ruby is telling like this. But what true no? He has come. The parrot has come for the narrator, for Ruskin Bond. Because Ruskin Bond only gave green chilies, ripe tomatoes, and the mangoes. So for that only he has come for Ruskin Bond. But the Aunt Ruby thought, it has come for me. It has come back for me. He must have missed me. Aunt Ruby thought like that. See next. With a loud squawk, the parrot flew out of her reach and, perching on the nearest rose bush, glared at her and shrieked in my aunt's familiar tone, "You are now beauty, can't sing, can't dance." And Ruby read and dashed it indoors. But that was not the end of the affair. The parrot became frequent visitor to the garden and veranda, and whenever it saw Aunt Ruby, it would call out, "You are no beauty, you are no beauty." Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance. The parrot had learned to talk after all. See, with a loud squawk, the parrot flew out on her reach and, perching on the nearest rose bush, and glared at her and shrieked in my auntie's familiar tone. So she came from her room and with a cry of surprise, no, at the time, with a loud squawk. Squawk means a loud harsh noise. The parrot flew out. When she came from her room with a cry of surprise, the parrot flew out of her reach. The parrot flew out of her reach and, perching means was, sat on the nearest rose bush and looked angrily at her. Looked angrily. It looked glad means it looked angrily at her and shrieked. Shrieked means to make the short loud noise. It makes loud noise in her aunt's familiar tone. "You are no beauty." See, now the parrot is telling at Aunt Ruby what? "You are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." You are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, and can't dance. Aunt Ruby got angry. Aunt Ruby went. Ruby read and dashed indoors. She went. Ruby read. Her eyes became red and she dashed indoors. She went into the room and she closed the indoors. But that was not the end of the affair. That was not end of the affair. The parrot became frequent. The parrot became a frequent visitor to the garden. So after that, the parrot visited frequent to the garden and veranda, and whenever it saw, and whenever the parrot saw Aunt Ruby, it would call out, "You are now beauty, you are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." The parrot had learned to talk after all. So she used to say at parrot, you are now beauty, you are now beauty, can't sing. But after that, the parrot says at her, "You are now beauty, you are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." Can't dance. The parrot had learned to talk after all. So this is the story. So what we teach to the parrot, that the parrot will react. Students, this is the image of gramophone. Students, let me tell you the summary of the story. The parrot taught Aunt Ruby a fine lesson. She was very keen to teach the parrot how to talk, but the bird had taken an instant dislike to Aunt Ruby and refused to learn. Birds are intelligent, and the parrot knew that it was there only for Aunt Ruby's amusement. She didn't really have real affection for it. When Aunt Ruby failed in teaching the bird, she made faces at it and said words like "can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." After the narrator released the bird and it came back on its own as it was missing green chilies, Aunt Ruby exclaimed that the bird was missing her and that was why it had returned. The parrot flew out of her reach and said loudly, "You are now beauty, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." Aunt Ruby became red faced at the insulting words and dashed indoors. She was properly humiliated by the parrot. She learned the lesson of humility. Students, the story conveys these matters only. So read these stories 2 or 3 times. Now it's time for homework. Students, what homework do you have? Read this story 3 times loudly. Then take your book, page number 87. So there you have first exercise. Find phrases or sentences from the story to correct the false statements one has been for you. So here the false statements will be given. You have to write the correct statements from the story. That's why I have told you, read this story 2 or 3 times loudly, then you will be able to answers to these questions. The first one, the parrot was happy in its cage. Actually, this is the false statements. So you have to take the correct statements from the story. That means what? The unfortunate parakeet who glared morosely at everyone, like that. Second one I will tell you. The caged parrot loved to talk. The caged parrot loved to talk, but our parrot refused to talk. So like that. Here answer is our bird refused to talk. Like that. You have to find the correct phrases or sentences from the story and taken right here. This is your homework. Next B. Read this sentence and answer the questions that follow. I see your aunt's parrot has escaped. Who said these words and to whom? How did the parrot escape? What did the other person reply to this? So these 3 answers, you have to find answers from the story. Students, these are the homeworks. Do it sincerely, then take a snap and send it to me. In next class, that means in upcoming classes, We will see answers for this homework. Do it sincerely. Thank you for watching.